The film Fearless, 2006, the true story of a boy with asthma who went from weakness to becoming the greatest kung fu master in China, but paid the ultimate price for it. 10-year-old Hui Yuanjia is the son of martial arts master Hui Indi. The boy dreams of becoming as strong as his father. However, Indi refuses to teach him, since the child suffers from asthma and would not be able to handle the training. Instead, the father makes him study calligraphy. But Yuanjia secretly trains behind his father's back, while his best friend Nong Jin's son does his homework for him. Indi is considered the second greatest kung fu master in the city. Today, he must fight Zhao, the first master. Hua is sure his father will win. Indi quickly gains the upper hand, but for some reason does not land the decisive finishing strike. Zhao takes advantage of this and dishonorably wins the fight. Yuanjia cries in frustration. Zhao's son then challenges him to a duel. Yuanjia accepts, but quickly loses. The boy swears that one day he will become the greatest martial artist in Tianjin. Together with Jin's son, he steals a martial arts manual from his father's library and trains endlessly, day after day. A few months later, Hua challenges Zhao's son once again, and this time, he wins decisively. Years pass, and Hua becomes a true kung fu master. His father has long since passed away, as has his wife, leaving him with a young daughter named Jade. Hua loves her dearly and spoils her constantly. They live together in his estate, along with his aging mother, who often reminds him that our greatest enemy is not outside, but within. But Yuanjia only smiles in response. Over the years, he hasn't lost a single fight. He has many admirers and disciples. However, he has become too arrogant and has begun to forget his father's lessons. One day, Zhao's son, now a skilled fighter himself, returns to the city and challenges Hua to a duel. Yuanjia expects an easy victory, but unexpectedly faces a very worthy opponent. In the end, Hua has to exert great effort to win and once again prove that he is the best. But Yuanjia has no intention of stopping. He wins duel after duel, effortlessly defeating anyone who dares to challenge his supremacy. He becomes so overconfident that he calls out and defeats several dozen opponents at once. When he isn't training, Hua spends most of his time at Jinsuan's restaurant, where he drinks heavily. Little Jade stays up late at night, hoping her father will finally come home and play with her. Yuanjia has long since spent all the family's savings and is deeply in debt to Jin's son. But the fighter doesn't seem the least bit worried about it. His friend tries to reason with him, warning him about his excessive drinking and careless acceptance of disciples. Hua offers them free food and alcohol, which only makes his debt to Jin's son grow larger every day. But Yuanjia doesn't seem to care at all. Soon, he meets Qin in the street, the only rival he has never fought before. Many consider Qin to be the greatest kung fu master. A heated exchange of words breaks out, leaving Yuanjia feeling humiliated. Not long after, Hua's disciples carry into his estate one of their fellow students, barely breathing. They claim that Qin mercilessly beat him. Yuanjia, convinced that Qin did it deliberately to insult him, rushes to Jinsuan's restaurant, where Qin is celebrating his birthday with close friends. Hua sits nearby, surrounded by his own companions, and glares at Qin with hatred. Qin approaches him and says he does not want to fight on his birthday. But Yuanjia is relentless. He ignores even Jinsuan's pleas to stop, and their lifelong friendship comes to an end. Everyone leaves the restaurant to avoid getting caught in the violence, and the two great masters finally face off. The fighters battle for a long time, wrecking half the restaurant in the process. They push each other to the point of exhaustion. But Hua refuses to end the duel peacefully and deliberately delivers a fatal strike straight to Qin's heart, leaving him no chance of survival. Yuanjia spends the entire night celebrating his victory in a nearby tavern. But when he returns home in the morning, he is horrified to find the lifeless body of his mother. He rushes into his daughter's room and, in tears, lifts the motionless body of little Jade in his arms. In her hand lies a small pouch, the one she had promised to give her father when he came home. Consumed by grief and rage, Hua storms into Qin's house, seeking revenge. There he encounters Qin's godson, who admits that he was the one who carried out the slaughter. Yuanjia lunges at him, ready to kill, but the young man slits his own throat before Hua can touch him. He spares Qin's wife and daughter and leaves. When Yuanjia returns home, the battered student confesses the truth. He had insulted Qin's wife and was beaten because of it. Unable to bear the horrible truth and realizing that he himself is to blame for everything, Hua leaves his hometown. In his pursuit of strength and glory, the master has lost everything dear to him. He sneaks into the hold of the first ship he finds, which carries him off to an unknown destination. 6 months later, Hu ends up in a distant land. Seeing no meaning in life anymore, he decides to end it. Fortunately, he is rescued by villagers who take him to their home, where an elderly woman named Granny Sun agrees to shelter him. Her blind granddaughter, Moon, takes care of Hua, worried because he never speaks and never leaves his bed. Over time, Yuanjia agrees to go with Moon to the river, where she helps him wash his head and cut his hair. Gradually, his will to live returns. He begins helping Moon and her grandmother with household chores and works in the fields alongside the other villagers. Over the years spent in the village, Moon and Hua grow very close. One day, a boy named Gue, who lives nearby, is caught stealing a bull from a neighboring settlement. Moon and Sun beg for forgiveness on his behalf and plead for his release, but the village chief declares that Gue will be beaten until the incense stick burns out. Hua steps in to defend the boy and offers to take the punishment in his place. For adults, however, the punishment is different. He must fight the chief, known as Iron Fists, feared throughout the region. Yuanjia endures the most brutal strikes without resisting. He doesn't want his martial skills to harm anyone ever again. Seeing that the young man has already taken a severe beating, Sun begs him to protect himself. Hua begins to dodge and block the attacks, but still refuses to counterattack. When the incense finally burns out, the chief admits his defeat and releases Gue. The next day, Hua, Moon, and the children from the village sit in the fields. The kids ask him to teach them kung fu, but the master refuses, explaining that great power, if misused, can lead to terrible consequences. Gue then blurts out that Hua and Moon make a great couple, but the adults ignore his words. One day, Moon tells Hua that she is going to visit her parents' grave. With pain in his heart, he recalls his own loved ones and realizes that the time has come to visit their graves too. Yuanjia shares this with Moon, and she supports his decision. Before leaving, Hua promises Moon that he will definitely return for her. Soon after, Hua arrives in Tianjin, which has changed significantly since the fall of the Qing dynasty. Powerful European nations have attacked and partially colonized China. Many Europeans look down on the locals with contempt, and the Chinese are literally groveling before the West. Yuanjia goes to his severely impoverished family estate, where he is met by the family servant, Lai Fu. Hua regretfully learns that creditors have cleaned out the house, taking almost everything. Lai Fu managed to save only one room, whose walls are decorated with mementos of all of Yuanjia's victories, but he tears them down and throws them into the fire, declaring that they no longer hold any value for him. Hua visits his father's grave and asks for his forgiveness. He finally understands why his father didn't deliver the final blow in their decisive fight. Afterward, he goes to the home of Qin's widow, asks for her forgiveness, and pays tribute to the fallen master. Hua sees two of his former students. They are working as bouncers at a foreign restaurant and throwing out Chinese people who don't have enough money for food. The students fall to their master's feet, crying and begging for forgiveness for their betrayal, explaining that they are forced to work for foreigners. Yuanjia is not angry, but he begins to realize that he has returned for a reason. In the city, Hua learns that the mighty American fighter Hercules O'Brien is challenging any Chinese master. The giant has 39 career wins and no losses, and Yuanjia is ready to fight him, but he needs money for the trip. He asks Jin's son for money to travel to Shanghai. His old friend refuses, but as Hua leaves, he leaves a newspaper on the table in which the American fighter insults the Chinese. Jin's son agrees to provide the necessary amount. In 1909, the match between Hercules and Hua takes place in Shanghai. The American looks twice as massive as the Chinese fighter. Yuanjia tells the referee that he intends to fight honorably and with dignity, but the referee, who doesn't understand Chinese well, translates to Hercules that Hua wants to kick his ass, which only makes the giant smirk. At first, Hercules throws Hua around the ring like a toy, but the master doesn't even think about giving up. He seizes the initiative and tries to find the American's weak spot. The crowd begins to cheer for Yuanjia, who decides to end the match. However, Hercules attacks Hua from behind and is immediately met with resistance. Yuanjia saves his opponent a second before a huge nail pierces his head. Hercules is forced to admit his defeat. Hua goes on to defeat many formidable opponents. He meets with Jin's son, who decides to sell his restaurant to invest the money in Yuanjia's endeavor, the Jinggu Kung Fu Sports Federation. This is the first sports organization in China that openly teaches martial arts to anyone interested. In this way, they can preserve their heritage even under constant pressure from the West. Meanwhile, officials from the Shanghai Foreign Club who essentially run the country, are unhappy with Yuan Jia's growing popularity among the Chinese people. They fear anti-Western sentiment and rebellion among the populace. The officials propose a match between Hua and 4 foreign champions on the same day. The Japanese representative, Mr. Mita, assures them that he has found a way to destroy the Chinese fighter. Yuan Jia realizes it's a trap, but still agrees to the fight. He meets Tanaka, his future opponent from Japan. The masters easily find common ground over a cup of tea. Tanaka is an honest, fair fighter, unlike the Japanese official. The year is 1910. Shanghai, the day of the decisive match. In the first fight, Hua is to face the British boxer Peter Smith. Yuan Jia knocks him out in less than a minute. The second fight is with spears against Hans from Belgium. The master also deals with him quite quickly. The third, Anthony Garcia, the European fencing champion. Hua humiliates the champion by disarming him before the start of the fourth fight. Tanaka says it's unfair to have 4 consecutive fights and offers to postpone his, but the Chinese fighter is ready to fight. The opponents choose their weapons. Hua takes a 3-section staff, and Tanaka takes a katana. During the tense battle, they accidentally exchange weapons. Tanaka doesn't know how to use the staff, so Yuan Jia graciously returns his sword to him. The first round ends in a draw. During the break, Hua drinks tea into which Mr. Mita has put poison. At the beginning of the second round, Yuan Jia begins to lose consciousness and cough up blood. Tanaka demands that the fight be stopped, but Hua, realizing that he will die anyway, is ready to fight on. With his last breath, he delivers a blow to Tanaka's chest, the same blow that killed Qin, but stops his fist a millimeter from his opponent's body, after which he collapses, powerless. Tanaka declares Yuan Jia the winner, understanding that his opponent could have killed him if he wanted to. Hua dies in Jin Sun's arms. Mr. Mita is disappointed with his fighter, and Tanaka, realizing what the scoundrel has done, calls him a disgrace to Japan. At the end of the film, the ghost of Hua is shown training near Moon's house. The blind girl smiles, sensing the master's presence, and runs to meet him. How do you like the movie? Fearless. Share in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.